being here with us today for this webinar. And well, I would like to start by basically introducing the World Space Week, which is hosting us today and which is hosting this event by labeling as a World Space Week event. So just briefly, the World Space Week has been basically established by the United Nations back in 1999. It's basically there to celebrate the contribution of that space can bring to the betterness of society, of the humans in general terms. This year theme of the World Space Week was very much in line with the objectives of one of the projects that we're going to introduce today, which is the GIS4Schools project that URISI is a proud partner of. And today we have also some of the schools that are participating that will provide us with some feedbacks and with some opinions and on how they are experiencing this innovative methodology to stimulate curiosity of pupils for STEAM subjects. This year, another very important topic of the World Space Week was women and gender balance in the space sector. So we also have here with us today two of the initiators of the Women in Copernicus projects, which is also another project that URISI joined some time ago, and that aims at creating a network of women working currently in the space sector and to give them a voice to be heard and to provide also a network of mentors for all the girls that want to join space as a sector to work. Today, we have here with us also a representative from EU4Geoskills Alliance, as well as the European Space Agency, that will provide us with a general presentation on the status of STEAM learning in Europe and what public actors are currently doing in order to support and to stimulate young students to join those curricula. And I am indeed very happy to have this privilege today of introducing this amazing set of speakers. I see a very female panel, so not only by the topic that we're treating today, but also with the people that are speaking today, we made a very good contribution to the event. So I don't want to steal additional time. With no further delay, I would like to give the floor to my colleague Alessandra. She will be the moderator of the panel discussion that we will have. I just would like to indeed briefly invite all the participants to be active with us, to participate to the event, to just provide us with your opinion, questions on the chat function. We will gather them and pose it to the speakers. And yeah, I mean, I'm also very interested in listening the presentation and the keynotes. So I give the floor to Alessandra, and I wish you a good webinar for today.
Thank you very much, Annalisa, for this introduction and for welcoming all our participants and speakers. So I think we should already start and get into the art of the event. And for this reason, I would like to start introducing Elisa Filippi. Elisa Filippi will introduce us the GIS4Schools project. Elisa is project manager and co-founder of Euronike. She's graduated in international studies and diplomacy and specialized in analysis of policies of local and regional development at the University of Florence. She has 10 years experience in the management of European projects, especially in the field of urban innovation and sustainability. She developed her experience in the management of European projects, focused especially on resilience, sustainability, innovation. Thank you very much, Elisa. You have the floor.
Thank you very much, Alessandra and Annalisa, for this introduction and also for have organized this webinar during the World Space Week. It's really a pleasure to be here and to introduce you briefly to the GIS4Schools project. Well, I hope you can see my screen. Okay, perfect. As Alessandra said, of course, my name is Elisa Filippi. I am the lead project manager of the GIS4Schools project on behalf of Euronic, which is a not-for-profit association based in Italy, devoted to the promotion of the European Union policies and opportunities, and to make these opportunities more accessible to the organization and other local actors, actors active at local level. We are currently leading the GIS4Schools project and also other projects focused on data science and urban resilience. But here we are with the GIS4Schools project. As you may know, GIS4Schools is a strategic partnership for innovation funded by the Erasmus Plus program in the field of school education. The project has the ambition to prepare the future for at least 3 reasons. The first one is that the project is addressed to the new generation. In fact, 200 pupils in Europe are the main players and active beneficiary of the project. The project is also going to make pupils face and analyze climate change. That, of course, it is one of the most important, concerning and complex challenges today. And it does that by exploiting public investment in one of the most advanced sectors, as the geospatial technology. Before explaining what we are doing in the project, just 2 words to explain who we are, so the project partners, and why we are going to do this project. As I said, GIS4Schools is a transnational multi-stakeholder partnership. Euronic is the lead of the project. Politecnico of Milan is the main scientific partner of the project. We also have 4 secondary schools that some of them are represented here today. So we have a school in Italy, Marconi, in Collegio Nacional in Bucharest, the school Marc Ferrer in Spain, in Formentera, and the Escola José Afonso in Portugal. We also have 4 associations active in many different fields, especially in the space field and in climate and urban resilience, like EAGLE, which is a training organization. UDD, of course, Association Urban 2020, which is an association active in the field of urban resilience in Bucharest, in Romania, and Blue Bubble World in Spain. So, very quickly, why GIS4Schools? The project is based on 3 main evidence. The first one is connected to the status of the STEAM education in Europe, so to the strong needs that we have for improving STEAM education in Europe. As we all are aware, that according to this study carried out by OECD, still more than 20% of students in Europe today still are having problems, difficulties in reading, mathematics, and science. The number of graduated in Europe, especially in STEAM matters, are still low in Europe, but also in Italy even more. So there is a strong need to improve the STEAM education by introducing new innovative teaching methodologies, and also by increasing the level of interest of pupils in these subjects. So make these subjects more appealing for pupils and for students. The second evidence is the climate change. So as also is stated in the European Green Deal, to take climate and environmental related challenges is the generation defined task. So we are all aware that there is an increasing awareness of young people about environment and climate. And the third evidence is related to the strong public investments made by the European Commission or environment in intergovernmental organization like ESA in supporting programs such as Copernicus, that you know better than me. It's a program that provides valuable data that are the basis of any GIS and that are extremely important for the monitoring and assessment of the climate change. But we also know, we are also aware that in spite of this valuable data supply, there is still a low propensity to exploit this data because of the absence of the data culture in the society and still weak analytical skills. So, starting from these three main evidence, GIS4Schools want to develop a new approach for improving STEAM education by developing STEAM teaching methodologies, by introducing into the secondary schools for the first time in Europe in a structured way the teaching of GIS, and by applying this to the thematic area of the climate change through the direct involvement of pupils in the co-creation of GIS outputs. We are going to achieve this main objective through the development of 5 intellectual output. The project started in September 2022 and it will last until June 2023. So what are these outputs? The first one, and I'm very glad to present it because this output is already has already been developed, so it's already available and accessible for by all. Is the training package. So Polytechnic of Milan, maybe Professor Carrion will also present it more in detail. Polytechnic of Milan have developed a comprehensive training package addressed to the secondary schools, which is also scalable and reusable, aimed at raising awareness and understanding of pupils on Earth observation, GIS, and climate change. This output consists in a webbook that you can find now on the GIS4Schools website. You can find it now in English. It is also on GitHub, on Zenodo, if I'm not wrong. Anyway, you can find this this webbook in English, but very soon, by the end of the month, hopefully, you will find also other version translated into national languages in order to be more accessible for many countries. So you will find the version in English, but also in Italian, French, Portuguese, Spanish, and Romanian. And we also have developed a lot of other supporting tools like video, webinars, and one help desk. This training package has been the main object of the first transfer of knowledge. First of all, to the teachers involved in the project. So in March, we held 1 week training to the teachers. It was online due to the restriction due to COVID-19. And then in December, we will also have a training in presence. And then the teachers transfer the knowledge acquired to pupils from March to June. And we also have right now some interesting feedbacks from the pupils that I will present you later, from their participation in this training. One important thing that I really want to highlight here now is that this tool, this webbook, is really available and available for all of you. So for other teachers, for other schools in Europe, but also for other practitioners or just people that want to learn about GIS. Indeed, by the end of the project, we want to involve other 50 schools in total in Europe in order for them to have access to this training package, and possibly to introduce this training package as a curriculum or a module into their learning programming activities in school. The second output are maybe it is also the core outputs of the project, so are actually the GIS products that will be co-created by pupils. It means that each school will develop one GIS output focusing on a specific climate challenge that are affecting their local community, using data provided by Copernicus, Sentinels, and other kind of data, and assessing it through the GIS tool. Schools have already identified the local challenge to be focused on. So in Portugal, the topic, but maybe it will be presented better today. In any case, in Portugal, the focus will be the land coverage and the increasing risk of flooding in Portugal. In Spain and Formentera, yes, Mark Ferrer, they are going to analyze the increase of sea temperature and its effects on the water biodiversity, especially with regards to Posidonia. In Italy, the school Marconi will analyze the spreading of the processionary moths and the consequences of the local forestry. And in Romania, the Colegiul Ion Nocheclu in Bucharest will focus on air pollution and its consequences on the quality of the air and the health in their cities and in their country. Besides, each school will develop the case study focus on the local community, but also each school will replicate this case study with the school in a developing country. We also have two other outputs, so the output number 3 and 4. I'm talking about the e-learning platform. So once we have produced all this knowledge and also these tools, we will also want to share this knowledge with other schools, teachers, and people that may be interested in. So hopefully by the end of the month, or at least by November, also a e-learning platform will be active, will be on. This platform will actually connect 3 already existing platforms. So the e-twinning dedicated to teachers, GitHub as an open source repository, and Zenodo. And in using the e-learning platform, you will also have the possibility to check and to self-assess the learning. And also next year, pupils and teachers together will also produce a video report and written report to document all the work they did. Finally, last but not least, we also have an output related to the monitoring and evaluation activities. In this framework, we as Euronic, we are also the lead of this activity, so the monitoring and evaluation. We have developed an open source software, which is called Digital Diaries, which is an open source software aimed at collecting real-time data during the real-time data and feedbacks from pupils and teachers during the implementation of the different phases. So this tool allow us to understand and to monitor the increase in pupils and teacher skills, but also the level of interest in the STEM subjects and other dimensions that we are going to monitor. To conclude, I would like to say that we have already started to use digital diaries. So we have already collected feedbacks from teachers and from pupils. And I want to share with you today just two results that we think are very important for this first phase. So for this first transfer of knowledge phase. So pupils that have participated to this to the learning course that has been held in each school from March to June reported, and we are very happy of that, reported an increase of knowledge in all the topic, in all the subjects, but especially we think it's important the increase of knowledge in two subjects, which are mathematics and geography. Actually, all pupils reported an increase of knowledge in mathematics, and we think that is very important because as you know, mathematics is at the basis of any scientific approach, scientific language. But at the same time, this topic is often difficult for pupils, and also many studies, reports observed that often only traditional methodologies have been used to the teaching of mathematics. So we think that introduce innovative methodologies for teaching mathematics is very important, and we are glad that this change produce positive effects on the pupils' learning. And the second result that for us is important is that students report a better understanding of their local territory thanks to this training course. And yeah, we think that are very important results, and we hope that now with the next phase that will start in October, so during this month, that we'll see the pupils directly involved in the creation of this GIS output. So this result can also be improved. So my presentation is here, and I think that we can. If you have any question, I'm very glad to answer and to share other comments and information with you.
Thank you very much, Elisa, and of course you're welcome to stay in the panel discussion. So I'm sure there will be plenty of questions and curiosity that will come regarding the project. Now I would like to introduce our next speaker, and actually keynote speaker is Marie Jagaille. Marie is project manager for regional satellite applications in Brittany Remote Sensing Cluster Bretel. She is, as also Annalisa mentioned at the very beginning, one of the representatives, together with Nathalie Stéphane, who's also with us today, representative of Women in Copernicus initiative. She coordinated the first Women in Copernicus survey, and now she's involved in other activities related to the initiative, such as the dissemination of results at European, national, regional level, as well as the implementation of local action or design new activities and projects. Marie will talk about the role of women in STEM, which is the core topic of the World Space Week 2021. Marie, you have the floor. Thank you.
Thank you, Alessandra. Can you see my screen, my presentation?
Yes, we
okay.
can. Thanks.
Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for inviting me. I'm very happy today to speak about women and girls in STEM and STEAM education from the point of view of women in Copernicus. Women in Copernicus is a collective voluntary project born in 2020 and led by 8 women active in Copernicus with different backgrounds and different skills, and with the common objective to give women in Copernicus a voice and a face, to identify and understand the barriers and the opportunities in their educational and professional path, and also to know more about their work, their motivations, in order to inspire more women and more girls to join Copernicus. I will tell you a few words about our work, but first I want to give some context elements on the place of women in scientific careers and the choices of girls towards these fields. In the world, more and more girls have access to education, but imbalances persist in the choice of the field of studies, and girls underrepresented in STEM studies represent only 35% of all students. This gap increases along the career, and for example, along a typical academic path, women are already unrepresented at the beginning of the career, and this gap dramatically increases, and only a quarter of full professors with permanent positions are women. The result is that women are underrepresented in all STEM jobs, and for example, in Europe, only 22% of artificial intelligence programmers are women. This is clearly an issue and a problem. First, because STEM fields have a growing influence on our society because of the digitalization of the society. And for example, 90% of future jobs will require STEM-related skills. Secondly, because STEM research and innovation can bring solutions to the environmental and climate crisis we are facing. Elisa Filippi described it very well previously. And we know that a diversity of skills and a diversity of perspectives leads to greater innovation success. So we can't let women out of this domain. It's imperative for human rights and also for scientific and development perspectives to ensure girls and women have an equal access to STEM. What about the Earth observation and geoinformation sector, the EOGI sector, including Copernicus? Until now, no study had been made on this sector about gender, and with Women in Copernicus, we realized a survey and collect answers from 460 women. The results of the survey confirms the already known factors influencing girls' choices, and they are in line with the PISA reports. I will give an example for each one of these factors. For example, first, women are influenced by society, and the survey shows that imbalance between boys and girls during studies and later experience of gender bias in the workplace are the main barriers for women in their path. Respondents also pointed, unfortunately, the omnipresent lack of confidence, and it's responsible of missed opportunities in their careers. It's also identified as the barrier for girls in choosing STEM careers. Another interesting result is about the family. Probably because the survey is not focused on girls, but only on women already in STEM and STEAM careers, family is not revealed as a barrier, but family is pointed as a support. So when the family is supporting women, it is the main facilitator. The lack of role models also appears between the lines, because role models are not identified as facilitator by respondents, probably because they didn't exist in their past. But Women in Copernicus also highlight opportunities, and I share with you some beautiful images underlying the aesthetic dimensions and also the artistic dimensions mentioned by some women in the survey. It can be really relevant in order to interest young pupils, including girls. And it's really relevant because it is shown that girls are more likely to be interested in or to choose an education focused on the arts than on the science. Another opportunity is the fact that women working in Copernicus pointed the work satisfaction as a facilitator, and the global level of satisfaction is 4 out of 5. So this is a very positive message that we want to spread to attract more girls in STEM and also in Copernicus or GI sector. The third opportunity is the fact that the survey shows that women are proud to work close to the users and to be able to provide solutions to face societal challenges. And it's also interesting because we know that girls have a tendency to favor people or society-oriented work values, and it is not perceived to be coupled with STEM disciplines. Actually, it is compliant with the STEM careers, and it's even an opportunity. Another interesting thing about STEM and STEAM, including arts, humanities, and many other skills and disciplines, is the fact that in order to analyze Earth images and deliver relevant and useful information, many skills are required, not only traditional STEM skills, but a STEAM with the A approach is necessary, gathering many disciplines, many skills. And this diversity already exists in Copernicus. A quarter of the respondents studies other fields as agriculture, social sciences, journalism, administrations, arts, education. And from a more specific point of view, for us, for the project, we worked with 2 women out of the space sector, and they brought another dimension to the project, realizing visuals, videos, motion design that allow us to spread our message more widely. We're also preparing a podcast with the first series in French, collaborating with radio and with journalists. To finish, I would like to say a few words about what we do, what we did, and what our partners do. We showcase our results, as I already mentioned. We also develop a Women in Copernicus community, and we encourage you to join us on our Twitter account or subscribing to our mailing list. We also work with other initiatives that are close to us, and you can see the replay of our first webinar series, gathering many initiatives about gender, women in Earth observation and geoinformation and Copernicus. And we also cooperate with the European Commission, and you can see a very interesting webinar with Vera Pinto on this subject. And I would like to promote other initiatives of sister projects, including mentorship, that is very important to take care about women's motivation and to fight the increasing of the gender gap in the career. And you can apply or you can take contact with a mentee with these 2 initiatives, Women in Geospatial Plus and Space for Women. You can join us and find more information, and of course contact us on our website or with our mail address. And I just want to say thank you to the team and to all the community, the women who answered the survey. We are also active in the community.
Thank you very much, Marie. And I would like to invite you to follow the activities of Women in Copernicus. And again, if you have any question, please use the chat. We will have soon an active discussion with the speakers. So feel free to start asking your question. And now we would like to invite to take the floor Monica Talevi. Monica is the head of the STEM Education Outreach Unit of the European Space Agency Education Office. She sets the strategy, coordinates and implements the school-age education activity of the agency. She's an astrophysicist by academic background and a strong advocate of the importance of innovative science and technical education to build an active citizenship attitude in a younger generation. where critical autonomous thinking are the core of the path to the adulthood. Monica will tell us more about the initiative, the ESA initiatives regarding STEAM education. Thank you very much, Monica. You have the floor.
Good afternoon, everybody. Sorry, my computer is very slow today, so let me try. I'm going to share my presentation. So very glad to be with you guys, girls. I should say today. Sorry, guys. I see the guy from the Marconi, not girls. So let's share the screen. Excuse me for the slowness of my computer again. Okay, so thanks a lot, of course, to the previous speakers who work, of course, brought a lot of the key elements in STEM education today, which are, of course, close to our hearts, or to whoever operator actually in the STEM field. So I think my presentation is about to pop up, hopefully. So what I'm going to do today really is to bring, let's say, the agency perspectives. In the current configuration, we have been active with the ESA education program for the school level, also with some, let's say, very relevant fringes of activities in the preschool level of early age education. Let's say since 15 years, we are in the current configuration, always evolving and striving to evolve at every program round every year. And I would like to bring actually the perspective after these 15 years of approach to see what are the challenges which are common to all of us and mostly known to all of us, the winning recipes and actually the opportunities, let's say, from our perspective of European level operator. So let me, hopefully my PowerPoint will respond to my commands. I hope. Excuse me. It's today's I am in this situation. So I guess you see the screen, but you don't see the slide changing.
We can see the screen, but not the slide changing.
So let me try again. Hopefully we'll not jump 2 slides now. I wonder if I should. Yeah.
We can try and share it for you if you want.
Thanks. Perhaps it's better because actually I'm afraid that we will not get out of this slowness loop. Thank you, Alessandra. So I am stop sharing. If I manage. Thank you, Alessandra. Very nice of you. Thanks for helping.
You should see it now, right?
Okay. Thank you. Yes, it's coming up, I think. Okay, thanks. We can go to the next slide, which is just very quickly an introduction to the first chapter, which is the challenges. So we can go to the next. Thanks, Ale. So today's challenges known to everybody. Traditional science education is no longer effective. This is not something that we know since today. It's already a few decades that research, especially pedagogical and didactics research, show that, and that really need to move and to shift to, let's say, new approaches in innovative didactics in terms of passing from passive learning to active learning. And there are already many initiatives, projects, and really movements actually trying to push education towards this level of innovation in order to become more effective in the, let's say, attainment of the pupils, but in raising the interest, in building the skills, the STEM skills which are needed. A lot is being done, but we all know, all operators in the field know that there is still a huge scope for improvement here, and there is still a lot to be done in the field. We also know that society is today confronted with global challenges which are unprecedented. At least the scale of these challenges is unprecedented, and certainly we need multiple generations, so not only this generation but also the coming generations of citizens and decision makers which are able to stand up to the challenges of the future and also work towards a sustainable future. Also, we know, and I think we will hear more from the GIS4Schools presentation that will come later, that also the economical sector is rapidly evolving, and there are many new skills and competences which are needed, and that need to be addressed by the field of education in order to better match, let's say, the need of the emerging needs of the professional world today, and especially those that will come tomorrow. And in fact, another characteristics of these times is that things are evolving and changing at a speed that we've never seen before. Next slide, please. So we say, the clock has been ticking so far, and this is a very nice and powerful sentence that we took from the OECD report 2018 called The Future of Educational Skills, that says that we should really prepare for jobs not yet created, technologies not yet invented, and to solve problems not yet anticipated. So I think that this really sets the scene for the challenge that education is facing today. Next slide, please. So if we focus on Europe in particular, I think also we may say the Western, let's say, world, the situation is slightly different in other countries. But in Europe, in the Western countries, but let's focus on Europe now. So it's all known, and in fact also both Elisa and Marie have already mentioned this. There is a shortage of specialized workforce in the scientific and technological sector, including the space sector. The need for new skills and competencies, as we said a moment ago, that has to be addressed. Lack of interest in STEM, girls in particular, as said already. The question of diversity and inclusiveness in terms of both trying to reach everybody and give an opportunity to everybody, and also build on the wealth and the richness that all the diversity and inclusiveness can bring to education is not systematically addressed across Europe. In particular, we have many countries, each of them with different education systems and different curricula. The curricula are evolving very often, sometimes too quickly to match the challenges, but then the teachers are not consistently supported and trained. So these are some of the issues that actually we see today. If you look at the figures, we have about 76 million pupils plus the 5 million school teachers, 24 languages. So this is the population, and these are the challenges, both at global level and also if you look at Europe, let's say among the most relevant ones. Next slide, please. So in our 15 years of experience, really always having a really very much the humble approach of learning from, especially from the educators, from the educator community, trying to listen to the educator communities. And also trying to bring into the picture the expertise that, let's say, an R&D or scientific technical institutions like the European Space Agency can bring. We've been really reflecting a lot with as much humbleness as possible. So this is what we have, let's say, adopted as our guiding principles over the years, keeping to learn. So the next slide, please. Okay, the first one, okay, this is of course not something that we have learned, everybody knows, but we always put it as first one because we really think that if you want to achieve sustainability, we better grow a generation which has sustainability as a concept in their blood. Of course, our best chances is that if you are native, let's say, if you are born in native in the sustainability culture, and that of course can be supported by education, then of course the chances to have a sustainable world and society later is higher. But getting more in particular, next slide. Let's say something which is also very important for us, in particular in the space field, but of course this can be, similar reflection can be done of course for any STEM field, any sci-tech field. This is of course, let's say, specific to space, but as I said, many elements of this can be easily exported to other sci-tech fields. Okay, in this case, space is a modern myth, so it's very motivational in terms of context. Inspirational, if you like. Space has become a prominent part of contemporary culture. As I say, this is not unique to space. This is true to many other fields. It's a large part of the solution to global challenges that we mentioned before. It's a source of cutting-edge, multidisciplinary scientific and technological knowledge, a real-life model of inquiry, problem-based scientific methodology. It needs every possible STEM expertise in order to be achieved in space program. So it's really a context that allows to illustrate any STEM subject, skill and competence. It's a cradle for creativity, innovation and transformational processes, which is really at the base of also the so-called 21st century skills that we saw on an earlier slide. It's also another important thing, a powerful model of collaborative dimension and dialogue beyond frontiers, which is also one of the values of modern education, the ability to collaborate. So these are all behavioral values, etc., etc. So these are all values that are assets, let's say, for those like us who are working in the space sector, and that can be used meaningfully for education. So we really try to focus on this particular strength. Next view graph. Another important thing that we are very cautious and careful of doing. Sometimes having to fight the culture of our fields, the scientific and technological sector, and I'm not talking about the education sector where these distinctions are extremely clear, but in the scientific and technological sectors, very often the venues of education are confused, and sometimes we have to fight inner fights, if you like, to try to structure activities and interventions in the best possible way, in the most structured way, without mixing objectives and scope. So which is really the, let's say, the distinction between what is curricular and extracurricular, what is formal, non-formal, informal, what is intentional education, incidental education. And every time we decide to go in a certain direction, try to do it by knowing what we're doing and respecting the rules of the game. Next view graph. The other things that I hinted already before, winning recipe is always being careful to respond to the educational needs. If we take the school example, for instance, of course, a school is a typical environment of formal education where you have a curricular framework. So it's very important to respond, be able to match the curriculum with whatever you propose. Either because you want to help let's say the school to develop to deliver their curriculum, or because you want to help the school system to innovate in the curriculum. But in any case, you really have to be very well aware of the curricular needs in terms of subject knowledge, skills and competences that are part of the curriculum, the core values and attitudes, and also the delivery methodologies, the kind of activities that can be performed, the supporting tools, etc., etc. And in fact, in particular, that's why we use space not much as a teaching context, because we all know that space, apart from very small components here and there, is not really part or a prominent part of the curricula today. So that's why we mostly use it as a context, sometimes as a subject when it's applicable. And as I mentioned before, we also try, but by trying to know what we're doing, try to boost innovation and help curricula to evolve. We see that there is scope. We see, having this overview at the European level, that national curricula are evolving, not at the same speed, not at the same time, not necessarily in the same way. But we see more and more that not only there is space for innovative didactics, but also, for instance, there is space for interdisciplinarity. That, of course, is also part of innovative didactics. Also, the professional world nowadays is asking for more and more interdisciplinarity, the ability of any new professional to be able to connect disciplines among themselves. Through interdisciplinarity, as I said, try to be innovative through interdisciplinarity and making maximum possible use of something that was mentioned also before, of role modeling, mentorship, and providing also career awareness, which is also extremely important. And in general, trying to bridge the gap through all these elements between the theory, thought, and learn in school and the real practice of science, which is really the missing link between the education and the professional world. The next view graph tells about one of our, let's say, what we adopted as our winning recipes, which is really inclusiveness. Try to be inclusive in what we do. So first of all, okay, our offer is free of charge for all the beneficiaries, reusable and usable by everybody who wants to access it. But also we really believe that we should really provide a fair access for all on a large scale. So really not to favor the elite, the most intelligent, so to say, really quotation mark, the richest communities, the children of scientists or engineers, the schools which have more money and tools to invest in education. So for us, it's really large-scale accessibility for all. Another important aspect is really, and we see that this really brings a lot of benefits, is really trying to make choices, programmatic choices in terms of education, which are sustainable on the long term. This is one of the, unfortunately, issues of the super valuable projects which we see, and that at some point in time, because the funding finishes, the projects very often do not have a follow-up. So this is also going to be part of my, let's say, challenge at the end of my presentation. It's really important, if we can, to join forces really in order to guarantee a long-term sustainability. That translates into, for instance, in our programmatic choices, no one-offs, so no event or things or initiatives or projects that just have, let's say, that are there for once, but that are recurring, so that several generations of teachers and students can benefit out of them for a long period of time. Of course, after a while you may change, you always evolve, the projects always improve, but it's really this availability on the long term, because usually also in terms of uptake of these activities, because you cannot have it super aware immediately in everybody, first you have a certain number of people participating, but then the number increases if you are there for a long enough period. And also we try to, as I said before, guarantee the financial affordability. So that also enters into the design of our activities to do something which can be sustained on the long term. And the next view graph, okay, just tells us, I mean, I'm not going to, let's say, show more than one slide, otherwise we could talk for 5 hours about our activities, but just a little bit in a nutshell, let's say how our program for the school age is structured. So first of all, we have an international component, which is really very much interlinked, and the two are feeding each other continuously, which is the national component. So in the international component is really the EASY Education Office steering, let's say, the European network that we have, that I will illustrate in a second, research and development on didactics applications. Let's say you are not inventing didactics in the academic way, in the sense that very much refer to the expertise which is in the academia for that, and also in the practice, of course. But also we try to be innovative in applying these didactics through the real intervention of the sci-tech sector, in this case the space sector. So we steer this R&D component at European level for with all the countries that participate into ESA. We develop international teacher training and international interdisciplinary school projects, which have all the characteristics, the winning assets, if you like, that we have identified, that we mentioned before. We provide, of course, access to the sci-tech sector, space sector in particular, through access to real space data, know-how, expertise, role modelings, mentors, etc., etc. But this one is very much interlinked and cannot live without, and vice versa, our national component. So you may have heard about our ESERO project, European Space Education Resource Project, which is, let's say, we have the next slide where I can show you later where we are present today, that basically is developing this program, deploying this program at national level. Forever, let's say, until further notice. Let's say the idea is to continue it as long as we can. We evolve together. We think we really think like a network. So each ESERO has the possibility to adapt whatever reflection we have done to the national curriculum, national education system, but at the same time feed back the network with all the expertise, lessons learned, best practices, because it's true that there are differences between the countries, but there are also commonalities. And we need to build on those commonalities and not to reinvent the wheel. So we have now, after many years really of research and practice, actually we got to this scenario today. nowadays our major effort is really in the formal education field, but we also have some actions in the informal education field, formal, non-formal. More will come in the future. We are about to present for approval at the end of next year a new cycle of our program, which is going to be called Space for Education 2030, where we will explore more axes like a better perhaps synergy between the formal and the non-formal / informal education world. It's in development, but this is the picture of what we do today. And if we go to the next slide, you see here the Zero network, as I said, going national thinking network. That's the concept I just said before. We are now present in 18 of the 22 ESA member states, and we will have 2 more at the end of this year and 2 more in the first semester of next year. And the key here is really at national level, collaboration, partnerships with the education stakeholders, so the major players in the field of education, STEM education in particular, and especially partnerships with the ministries of education for the accreditation of the offer, especially the teacher training. So in the next slide, I think I'm going to quickly, yes, this is just to give you a couple of figures. Let's say, thinking sustainability on the long term, the Zero network and network with us, it's our, let's say, response to this long-term sustainability. These are more or less the figures. So basically every year, and this is the last year, we do not have the 2021 data yet. We have reached about 1.7 million students and about more or less a little bit less than 500,000 teachers. And out of these 500,000 teachers, about 40,000 teachers have received accredited curriculum accredited teacher training. So this is just to give you, let's say, a little bit of the size. And at the time, I can also say that for the time being, budget is our limit, because if we had more budget, we could, we believe, reach more than that. So the next part, which is going to be short, is let's say opportunities. And I'm going to shortly close my presentation with that one. So in the next view graph, I just posed, let's say, some questions actually for the community that is present here today. I think that when we talk about role modeling, mentorship, the importance of bridging the gap between education and the professional world, linked, by the way, to the lifelong learning that comes later in the professional path, and EO4Geo will present all these aspects. It would be very good if we all together we could really connect the dot between these different realities, not in a patchy way, because we are all intervening patchy. If you look at the bigger picture, the amount of teachers we need to reach, the amount of students we need to reach, we try to do our effort. But I think we can do all together better in really connecting the dots by this of these components of the lifelong learning dimension, if you like, for the benefit of each of the age groups. And also my really call to the community, this is really something that I take the opportunity to do every time, is really to federate efforts. Because there are many valuable initiatives. Today we had the pleasure to hear GIS4Schools. There are many other valuable initiatives, and in the next slide I just mentioned a few, but it would be very nice. Yes, here you have some, just a handful out of tens of examples that we can have on the table. GIS4Schools, of course, is one that we heard today. Also at ESA, we have a pretty structured program for making use of satellite data and also ground measurements for school children, school pupils, to identify local climate problem and then propose a solution, analyze the data. So it's very similar in scope and nature to the GIS4Schools. We have different initiatives like the Education for Climate Coalition of the European Union, the Climate Education Office initiative that was born in France and now is gathering partners. We have GLOBE and many, many, many more, even at global level with the UNESCO, etc., etc. So my question is, and with more than, yes, it's a challenge that we pose ourselves, and I would like to pose the community here. Can we federate effort? Can we make an attempt all together to federate effort? Because we all know that education never has enough resources. So we are always struggling for resources. So it's really a call to the community. I know it's not easy, and certainly it will not take one day, because also there are institutional issues. For instance, the European Space Agency cannot ask for funding from the Commission, of course, because we are also funded publicly by the same governments that fund, more or less, not exactly the same, but there is a big overlap of countries that fund the European Space Agency and fund the Commission. So there are also institutional, let's say, aspects to be sorted out and to be, but certainly if there was in the community an advocacy, let's say, the call for advocacy to a federation of effort, towards a coordination of efforts, perhaps, and this is really a big challenge, perhaps a single European STEM curricular framework. I mean, in the first, I titled the previous slide, so we are talking about global issues. What about global solutions? So if you can kindly go back to the previous slide for a moment, the two are, of course, interlinked. So that's why I was saying, perhaps global federation of efforts, perhaps the challenges of today, the societal challenges of today, are really perhaps calling for an extraordinary action of federation of efforts for the good of society. So that's just, let's say, a question, perhaps a call, perhaps an invitation to reflect on on joining forces more at a bigger scale. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Monica. Thanks a lot.
Alessandra, for your support with the slides. Very appreciated.
Thank you very much. And now I'll give the floor to our next speaker, which is Stefan Lang. Dr. Stefan Lang is a professor at the Department of Geoinformatics at the University of Salzburg in Austria, is a specialist in remote sensing, and he works in promoting the usage of Earth observation in various societal domains and acts as a promoter of the Copernicus Academy. He is also coordinator of the European Joint Master Copernicus Master in Digital Earth. His team coordinates the education training component in the Erasmus Skills Alliance project GIS4Schools, and is also co-founder of a spin-off Spatial Services and acts as a director of a private institute called GI+. Stefan, I'll give you the floor. Thank you.
Okay, thanks a lot. I hope you see my slide here.
Yes, we do.
Yeah, and you hear me properly. Okay, so well, in the interest of time, I think we're running a little late if I look at the original schedule, so I try to be short and concise. And I'm extremely thankful for the previous presentation because it's very complimentary and I don't have to repeat all these very valuable insights that we already got to the potential future job and skills perspective that we had. This is a little bit, let's say, complementary view because this is the perspective from the sector. You know, EO and GI, that's in particular the marriage between both subsectors is kind of a really thrilling development that we are just facing. It is one of the, let's say, the growing sector of the future. And this skills alliance is basically, well, the attempt of Europe to support these growing sectors with a sort of grouping of actors from academia, from industry, from the private sector, and many others who are involved, including, of course, also vocational training institutes and everyone who is somehow related to this skills panorama. So GEO4Geo is a blueprint project. It's actually kind of a precursor for this Future Skills Alliance that should be a sustainable grouping promoting these future skills, and then of course also delivering material and so on. And here's a few insights into this project. Basically, well, what you see here is, well, there's a group of pupils probably, and they think about what they may study, and well, we can offer many things. I think when we think of space research or space-related research, then this is, of course, much more than just space engineering. You know, it's very transversal, it's very interdisciplinary. It's very integrative, and we are focusing now here, well, among the many subfields of space research, on Copernicus and Galileo, basically Earth observation and navigation. So those space asset and space application fields that rely on geospatial thinking. And this brought us to this, what I've mentioned as kind of a marriage between Earth observation and geospatial thinking, because we think that only the bridging of both can really provide the right tool set and the right mindset also to cope with the challenges that we had. So we had, well, we had the chance, of course, to listen to that. I think we are all aware of that. But here's some new and completely new class, I would say, a new type of problems, because these are real, true global problems. So we also, of course, need globally applicable tools and a global applicable mindset in order to cope with them and eventually solve them. So I think this is really a great challenge. And here is a big team, of course, forming up this GEO4Geo consortium to deal with the space geoinformation sector. And as you see, it's represented by institutions from academia, private sector, and many others. So it's a conglomerate, basically, trying to represent all the, well, all those subsectors which actually rely on future skills. So those who are trying to convey these skills, make people, young people acquire these skills, so basically universities and other vocational centers, and those who are relying on the workforce later on. And of course, there should be a good match between those, yeah, the demand of skills and the provision and offer of skills, because otherwise we run into risk that we are not able to cope with these grand challenges. How do we do this kind of closing of the skills gap? Of course, it's one thing is you immediately think of more training material, yeah, but that's not all of it. What we're trying to do at the moment, and I'm really happy that Monica has mentioned the idea of a kind of a framework curriculum for Europe, would be great. Would be even greater to have that in the world, yeah, because we have the similar problems. Basically, we have the same technology, we have a similar set of problems all over the world. So a European-wide curriculum is a minimum, I would say. It's a starting point. It's not the end of the game. But we know that this is super challenging. But training material is not the end of the show. I mean, what we are trying to do here is a structured approach to systematically close this existing skill gap, or this not existing, but the skill gap, which is kind of, that's a kind of a hazard scenario that we are facing for the future. And of course, we would like to prevent that and be well prepared for it. So it's not only the training material, but it's that structured approach. That means that training material should be like provided in a granular way, should be used and reusable, should be foundable, should be retrievable in the web, should use a kind of a standardized machine readable format, and so on and so forth. So there's all kind of technical requirements behind that. And there's, of course, training action. So this is the kind of trying to exemplify this in several constellations with several audiences and so on and so forth. Of course, we don't have the time and the capacity to cover everything, but we do it like as I said, in a kind of a sampling mode. So in the way that in the end we have a complete picture. What I personally think of the greatest achievement is what we call a body of knowledge. This is the extended body of knowledge that we started from with an existing one in geospatial technologies, and we expanded this to Earth observation. So it's now a huge repository of more than 1,000 concepts which are all interrelated and which are forming that kind of knowledge backbone that we may need in the future. Of course, it's an ongoing process. It's a snapshot in time at the moment. We have to be capable to have a kind of a dynamic system. The training approach, this is a little bit more schematic view, but the idea is that we can model different learning paths, depending, of course, of those who are either it's someone who is entering, let's say, from high school level into university, or it could be a reskilling activity of a certain person that works in a company and is asked actually to reskill. So there's all kinds of different learning paths, and this can be modeled and this can be mirrored in our tool set. Coming for a moment back to this body of knowledge, you see here I said space research is very interdisciplinary, and if you integrate it with geospatial or geoinformatics, then it's even more interdisciplinary. And you see all these disciplines that are actually touched upon. So of course we have to define a perimeter of this body of knowledge. Where does it end? Where does it start? And that was a big big effort. What we are very proud of it is that we are not only including technical concepts, but actually also focusing on thematic and application domains. So trying to systematize the application space of space technology, yeah? And this is, of course, and it's simply endless, because of course we are every now and then discovering new potential application fields. So it needs to be open, it needs to be dynamic. If we just look at one example, that this kind of a model implementation of a training element, this was a summer school that we have performed here in Salzburg, of course, with the help of other partners. So there are, it's really a structured approach where we see exactly, okay, what type of concepts are being taught, where are the learning objectives, how they are matched to this body of knowledge. And we also applied a very, I think, innovative learning method, that we basically generated something what we call hungry minds. So we are starting from the applications. We are not starting from the tools, because often you have something like people use fancy Google Earth Engine or so, and other tools, and so they are tool blind basically, or they are blind, they are too much focused on software. So we did it the other way around. We had an international audience for that, students from all over the world. We were talking about applications. Yeah, and how can we serve this? Okay, we need technology, we need data, we need software, and so on. And then things come up with open source, interoperability, and so on and so forth. So I think this is quite, this has been quite innovative. This is the design, I think, that we need to acquire in the future. Not generating slaves of a certain software environment, but open-minded people who try to solve problems and to understand and solve problems. All right, last slide, already quite busy, but I pick out just some views, because as I said, the EO4Geo project is a blueprint. It's kind of a precursor to a longer lasting skills strategy in this, or sector skills alliance basically in this domain. And for that we have a strategy. And here are some critical elements of that. Of course, we have to observe the trends. I mean, this is a super fast technological field, what we're facing at the moment. We don't know exactly what's there in 5 years. No one really can see what's the consequence of digitalization, of artificial intelligence, of on sensor, in-sensor processing, and all other fancy stuff. So we have to be ready for these technological trends. The second is, of course, cooperation, federation. I think this is super important. It is harmonization of curricula, framework curricula. Of course, not everyone should do the same, but having the chance to focus and emphasize. But somehow, of course, we have to deal with the fact that globally we have the same needs. Yeah, okay, that's how it is. And third is the kind of a one-stop portal for training material, yeah, to have something which is really interchangeable and linked to the body of knowledge. And as I said, and the fourth would be encourage citizen engagement, citizen science. This is the in situ source of the future. We know that this is can be of enormous potential to gather socioeconomic data outside authoritative data. And this is, well, we think that we have a huge untapped potential in this field. And of course, we have to train then citizens to have a minimum understanding of the technology they can use. That's all from my side. Thank you very much. Happy to answer questions.
Thank you very much, Stefan. So I would like to start opening the floor for questions already from the audience. So if you have any question, please use the chat. To, let's say, break the ice a bit, I have a question for all of you. So do you think that there is a starting point from which we can start to revamp the interest towards STEAM subject? And I was wondering if this starting point should be academia, so providing expertise from the academic world, or for instance, the private sector. I don't know who wants to start. I don't know. Should I call someone? I don't know. Monica, I saw you nodding, so maybe if you want to start in this. You are muted. Yeah, thank you.
Yes.
Yes.
Sorry, it takes 3 hours to unmute. Sorry. I think the expertise is there. And I think that the expertise is there, and I think it's depending on our role, because some of us are educators, some of us are scientists, some of us are decision makers. So I think the expertise is there, and I think it's just a matter of recognizing who has the expertise, and again, pull it together. We just need to connect the dots. I think that the most successful initiatives are those who are putting these ingredients together. I reiterate a little bit what I said before. I think that we need actions on the long term, sustainable on the long term, in order to create the critical mass that we want. I'm sure that in all the projects that we mentioned before, the GIS4Schools, for instance, just because it is the context of today's webinar, I'm 100% sure, 1000% sure that the 200 children plus the 2000 that will be indirectly involved later will have their life changed because of this experience. The point is no doubt about that. The same applies, as we know, for instance, to the children that participate into our projects. We know from their teachers, we know from their parents, we know that it has an effect, but we need to increase the critical mass. So I think that expertise is there, and I think there are already a lot of virtual examples of successful projects that can be just replicated. I mean, the model, we know the model. The operators in the field have got confidence in the models. We need the long-term sustainability. We need the long-term sustainability. Yeah.
Thank you, Monica. And who else wants to answer or add something to what just Monica said? I don't know, Stefan, if you want to provide, and also Daniela, you're welcome to provide the, let's say, point of view from the academic world.
Well, in academia, we always have a little bit the challenge to anticipate. I mean, today we are educating. I mean, you've mentioned in a kind introduction, for example, our joint master course that we have with other European universities. It's called Copernicus in Digital Earth. So what we try to do is somehow to predict the future demand. Well, of course, we cannot fully do that, but in this dynamic, it's sort of super challenging, because if you compare this maybe with other subjects which have a longer or slower time span, then of course you have some kind of key findings or key publications that you can study, and then you orient yourself according to that. Here we have sometimes the opposite. It's not let's say the main advancements, or some advancements are not brought forward by universities, but some of them are brought forward by industry. So we are somehow behind, and then of course we cannot simply follow that. but we have to try to bring this also to critically assess that. You know, are we just following Google because they set a sort of de facto standard, or is that something that, well, so what's the generic elements in that? So at the same time, you have to break the process a little bit or slower it down, because of course otherwise you cannot educate people in a thorough program. And at the same time, as I said, we have to be fortune tellers what's maybe required in 2 or 3 years. Yeah, so we always lag behind. We have to revise completely, or well, sort of completely, our content and material, our syllabi every semester. You know, it's not, nothing is stable longer than 1 semester.
Thank you very much. I don't know, Daniela, if you want to add another point of view from academic.
I don't know if I have another point of view. I totally agree with Stefan in the sense that we have to update continuously if we do not want to stay too much behind, as he was saying. So not only we have to update, we try to study ourselves, we try to improve, to introduce new courses, to try to introduce new activities. For example, at Politecnico, we are trying to introduce new PhD courses, also in the framework of the Copernicus Academy Network, in order to spread the idea. And we had the opportunity this year to make this course, for example, not only for our students, in the sense the students who already are registered to our disciplines, so have maybe already access to Copernicus data, but also other engineers who are not registered to those courses. So we try to spread as much as possible this content.
Thank you very much. I have one other question, which is related to international cooperation. Do you think that international cooperation among schools can be like a key to implement, for instance, new teaching methodology? Yes, I see also Annalisa that raised the hand. So maybe we can go first with Annalisa and then answering this question related to international cooperation. Yes, Annalisa, please.
Thank you, Ale. It was just, yes, a side comment, perhaps listening what, I mean, everybody was saying. I believe that the connection with industry is paramount, not only because industry is the driver of the needs of the tomorrow workforce, but also because can provide to the students, to the pupils, to the people that are going to join one day this work with concrete examples of what is needed in the workforce, in the labor market. I mean, sometimes I have the feeling that when you are young, when you're a teenager and you don't really understand what one academic path can bring you, or which is the job connected actually to that specific thing, you don't I mean, out of curiosity, you don't enroll to mathematics, for instance, and to have the possibility to see what actually you can do by enrolling in a mathematic curricula, I think it's completely different. And this is also something that the connection between university, schools, and industry can bring, which are like cases, let's say, practical examples of what can be achieved and what can be done with certain specific academic paths rather than others. So this was just a side comment to highlight indeed the need to have more connection with industry and actually with the examples that industry can bring to students and to the community.
Thank you very much, Annalisa. I have one last question. So it's again the question on international cooperation among schools. We're seeing there are a lot of projects managed by international organizations, or for instance, we have the Horizon 2020 or Erasmus Plus projects that rely a lot of international cooperation. So what I would like to ask to all our speakers, and I would also invite the teachers that are representing 2 of the schools participating in GIS4Schools project, is if could international cooperation can be a key to implement new teaching methodologies for the future. I don't know who wants to start. Yes, Nathalie, please.
Yeah, I just on my before you asked the question.
Okay.
I think it's quite related also. I had the impression, and I heard in some international conference, where you can exchange some vision that the COVID changed perhaps the way of teaching also, and that there are some experience of teacher who really jump on it as an opportunity, as a way to involve the student in acting, in doing himself is work as student. And I think the tools that is offered in GIS4Schools is one good example. You have the tool, you have the thematic, you have the idea, you have a kind of handbook of what to do. You have some coaching from the student to the school. You have some coaching from academia behind, who has the knowledge of the tools, the thematic, and also all the body of knowledge that has been presented by Stefan Blank and a lot of people that could help at each level. And I think it's really the way to motivate the student, and perhaps that's the nice way to give them some knowledge, or at least knowledge of what to do, and that's what's needed in the enterprise, in the society. I've been working in university, in private company, in a research center during all my career, and I think what is really needed is to adapt, to be flexible, to be agile, and all that the student will learn it by doing things, by thinking about what they have to do, and by addressing the challenges. And climate change is one big challenge. They all want to address these challenges. And Earth observation is space information is quite a good tool to do that.
Thank you very much, Nathalie. I don't know if someone else wants to add anything else.
Perhaps Alessandra.
Yes.
Concerning, let's say, your line of thought as well, what I can bring is that also the interaction between the teachers. So you were talking about the interaction between the teachers in particular. Of course, there are many things that we can do and we should do, but also favoring the international interaction between teachers works. And this is what we see in our internet, and that's the reason why we, for instance, we decided to keep the international teacher training, even if the international teacher training can never be so much tailored to the national curriculum. It has to be brought built on commonalities and brought to another level, but still the value is really this level of interaction. So certainly interaction between teachers is certainly fertilizing, let's say, a new attitude, innovative attitudes. Certainly, I think by experience, it's also an element that helps. It's not the only one, but it's certainly an element that helps as well.
Thank you, Monica. Elisa, please. I see also you raise your hand.
Yes, Alessandra. Just sorry for the echo. Just a very, very short comment. Well, I was really thrilled about the idea of the idea to developing one unique STEAM curriculum in Europe, because I think it would be great, because I totally agree. There are already some good projects, even excellent project initiatives in schools in Europe, but what is missing is the structured way. So me too, are really concerned about the sustainability of the initiatives. But about that, I think that, well, we have always to consider that education is still a national competency, and I think that this is a problem. I mean, it's in some way it is a problem. So I think that we should have to join the forces and the efforts to overcome that in some way. But if we want to make Europe, we should also have a really European framework in which to work. So this is the first thing. The second one is about sustainability. I think that for the referring to the secondary schools, I'm not a teacher, but I'm working with them, even in GIS4Schools project. And I think that if we want to build sustainability, achieve sustainability of the initiatives in the secondary schools, we have to focus really, really much on teachers, because if they are well trained, if they are motivated, they can actually continue to the learning, so actually provide sustainability also to our initiatives. So just that.
Thank you very much, Elisa. And just for your information, we will have next week another webinar in the frame of the Erasmus Days, and we can continue discussing about the importance and the need to have maybe one single curricula for particular for STEAM subject. And thank you very much for this point. I think we are running a bit late compared to the schedule. So I think we can conclude it here with this session. I thank everyone who participated to the first session, and now and I invite you, of course, everyone to stay in touch, and at the same time also to follow the activities of Women in Copernicus, the ESA Education, and also the Geo4Geo, just to be always updated and to bring what you discovered today home, let's say, so to your institution. So thank you very much. And now I'd like to give the floor to Daniela Carrion, because now we are entering more into the GIS4Schools project. And in particular, Daniela will talk about the training package that has been developed by the Polytechnic of Milan, as Elisa also anticipated during her presentation. So Daniela is an assistant professor at the Politecnico di Milano. She's a teacher of GIS and geospatial data processing and mapping for crisis management. She acquired expertise on crisis mapping during 2-year experience as a postdoc at the Joint Research Center of the European Commission, where she performed technical and scientific validation of emergency services and crisis mapping. She's also co-chair of the Commission on Ubiquitous Mapping of the International Cartographic Association. Daniela, the floor is yours. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Alessandra, for the kind introduction. I would like to start my presentation. I will try to be short. So I'm going to introduce the training package that we have developed for GIS4Schools. Very, very few words about us. I work at Politecnico di Milano, which is a quite large university, luckily very well placed in the international ranking. Here you see the teachers who are involved, officially involved in the project. Maria Antonia Brovelli, who is a professor of GIS, and Marco Gianinetto, who is professor of remote sensing and survey, and myself. But we work in a large team. We have lots of postdoc and PhD students who work with us, and lots of them have contributed to the development of the training package for GIS4Schools. These are our research activities, which go from Earth observation to big geodata, but also voluntary geographic information and citizen science. I would like to introduce how we designed the training package. So we followed the plan that was made throughout the project. So the idea was to design the training package according to the needs of the school and according to their background. So the idea was to try to make something which was easy. We hope that we met the goal. The idea was to try to provide all necessary knowledge without going too much into the detail in terms of complexity, but to try not to miss important aspects, which was quite a challenge actually, because we come from academic world, so we are used to a target which is different with respect to secondary school. So we had to try to lower as much as possible the level of the difficulty in order to make it understandable. We had the idea of sharing the material of the training package instead of through a traditional book. or PDF text through a dynamic text based on Sphinx, which is a software based for preparing documentation. And we published the training package through Read the Docs. We have used the training package already through the training during the training workshop of 4 days, which was held in March, to pass the knowledge which was summarized into the training package to the teachers involved in the GIS4Schools projects. And following that, the teachers have passed this knowledge to their pupils. Sorry, I go back to the previous slide. The training package was organized into 4 main chapters. The first 2 are related to providing the knowledge about GIS and GIS software. Then we have a chapter about Earth observation and imagery analysis. And then the final one was about geospatial data management for climate change and hazard, in particular providing information about Copernicus platforms and crisis mapping. Here I have put a few screenshots from the handbook in order to show you how it is structured. Here we see the first chapter, which is data visualization with QGIS. Every chapter is divided into 2 parts, which were translated also in how we transferred the training during the training workshop. So with the first part of theory, which was, as I said, as much as possible kept simple, and a second part of practice, hands-on the software, in order to be able to manipulate the data, because in the end, what the students will need during the projects for GIS4Schools is to be able to manipulate their own data and to produce their projects. So here there is a very simple example of the theoretical part. You see that everything is organized into chapters, and the advantage of having a dynamic text is that you can see the table of contents on your left side, and there are also dynamic links to not only the parts of the text that you're reading, but also pointing at other chapters, and also to external sources. So where possible, we considered already available sources on the internet in order to allow to deepen some concepts if it was needed, without including too much into the text and considering it only for deepening the topics. Here you see an example of the practice part for the first chapter. So you see that we have produced it in a way that we produced screenshots and also specific guidelines so that the text can be followed step by step, even after following the training. Here you see an example for the second chapter, which is GIS and analysis tools. This is for the theoretical part, and as well as seen before, also for the practice. Then we have the chapter about Earth observation and imagery analysis. In this case, we have lots of chapters and sub-chapters. Also, in this case, it was very difficult to compress as much as possible the needed concepts in a simple way, in a short time span and in short space, because of course, Earth observation is a discipline itself. But we tried, and I think that this was a good summary. You can access this data and lots of details that can be deepened, as I said, considering also additional boxes and links. For the Earth observation part, there were some hands-on exercises. Here you see which were considered: the monitoring of lakes trophic state, mapping crop types, and monitoring crops vegetative stage. So the concepts were prepared in a way that all needed information was available for being able to make do the practice afterwards. So here you see an example of hands-on exercise with all the phases that have been considered. The last part is about Copernicus Emergency Management Service and Crisis Maps production. So you can find First of all, the theoretical part about which are the services available from Copernicus with respect to climate change, and in particular the web services, the one providing directly maps, but also the Copernicus emergency mapping service, and also some concepts about how to produce crisis maps. And then we have the practical part with two hands-on exercises, one about flood mapping and flood impact computation, and the other one about fire mapping. Again, everything has been linked with the theoretical part, and the idea was to provide all basic concepts to be able to produce the exercises. Here you can find the link to the training handbook, which is openly available online. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Daniela. And in addition to this, I will also inform you that the handbook is available on the GIS4Schools website. So please visit the website, and you can also access the training package from there. And now it's the turn to listen the teachers and the students, actually. So I would like to start with Vania Cardoso. Vania is together with two students, but they will introduce themselves. Vania is a math professor, yes, at the high school in Portugal, José Afonso, and she's very active and keen in working in projects that are outside the comfort zone and work at the international level. So Vania, please, you have the floor.
Okay. Hi, thank you for the introduction. I don't know if you can see my screen. Okay.
Yes, we can.
So just let me check. Okay, so I'm going to talk a bit about our training week. So I'm going to give my feedback. Some of the information Daniela just talked about, so I will try to not replicate the same information. The training package was a whole week, a full day, whole week, and it was really intense. Although the sessions were carefully planned and they had in mind that this event would be online, and probably most of us did not know this particular software, I think in the end it all went well. I would say very well. I am a math teacher, as Alessandra just told you, and I was just not very comfortable with this kind of software. So I didn't know anything about it. The teachers were very patient, and in my opinion, they were able to get to our attention most of the time. So that part was achieved. I have a resume, a synthesis about what we did in all the sessions. So this is mainly what we did in the first 2 days. I guess this part was the part I liked the most, because I was able to work in line with what we were being taught. So we were briefly introduced to the basics of QGIS. We had some info about raster and vector data, and we learned how to choose which one fits better when working with different entities. So if you have discrete objects, we work with raster, and if you have continuous, the wrong side, the discrete objects, we work with vectors, and with continuous surfaces, we work with raster layers. We also learn how to load layers from a geo package. All this data was previously sent to us, so we work with workable data, let's say this way. In the second day, we had also the opportunity to begin working with QGIS. And as you can see, I was very enthusiastic. I did some mapping, and it was really great to see the outcome, the output. In the next day, began the hard part. So this is a very intense software to work with in just 1 week. I guess we all felt the same. The fact that we were working online did not help, of course. The teachers were amazing, I must say. They were very patient. They work with a calm. They attend all our queries, but we also knew that if we spend too much time asking and inquiry about our doubts, our personal doubts, this wouldn't go to the end like it was meant to. So I guess this fact made it hard for us to completely or fully understand the software. But there's a good thing about this, and I can speak for myself. I tried after the training to work in the software, having the training book and the handbook, I'm sorry, and I did it with no difficulties. So the handbook is a really amazing tool. I guess we will be able to work with our students with no much difficulties. So the last day, we work on the, we had some theoretical session, but it was necessary to understand how we would manipulate data to get the information needed. And then we moved to the exercises and this part should be more familiar for me. It was math all the way, but I guess it was just too much information. We were, by the end of the week, we were tired, and so this was a hard part to how can I say this, to follow up with the trainers. In the last day, we had a session with Daniela. She talked about it, so I won't spend much time here. It was about Copernicus emergency management and services, and we learned about crisis maps production. In the afternoon, we had hands-on exercises, which were, I guess, overwhelming for me, at least. But in summary, we saw and experienced most of the potential of the software. So I guess it was a great training, having in mind that it's too much information to have in 1 week and online. And the book is a huge support for us and for the pupils, and they will now have the possibility to explore this software themselves. So I have some positive thinking and not so positive, but I don't think it's negative. The positive the thing is that we were allowed to complete this part of the process. So we were confined, but we still did the training sessions, and the trainers were determined on transmitting all the information. So they did it dynamically and promoted all sessions, and it was clear. It was hard because I speak for myself. This was not something I was used to, so it was really hard. But I guess they did an amazing job. And the not so positive facts I learned afterwards was the fact that the teachers from different subjects, even different countries, we couldn't share or exchange ideas about the connections that inevitably exists when we work with this tool. So I guess this was a handicap for the session being online. Probably wouldn't happened if we did it in person. After our training, we had the transfer of knowledge. So the study case was presented to our students, and they worked more theoretically about the theory behind floods. So they searched, this was mainly research from students. They searched about environmental risks, the inevitable causes for floods, and they did some analysis of some of the consequences of the floods in some Portuguese and international cases. And we had some students that also made some videos and shared information they researched. So I would now ask Bruna, I hope she's there, to give her feedback.
Okay. During last year's term, my class studied about climate changes and its global effects, but since we didn't have much time because the year was ending, we didn't really go further in the subject. We mainly explored the theme of precipitation and the factors that influence it. We actually only talked about precipitation in Portugal, but I think it was more interesting that way because we could get a more realistic view of it, since we live in Portugal and we are constantly affected by the precipitation here. In my point of view, we only talk about what was on the book and didn't even talk about things that are also important, like floods, deforestation because of fires and all that. And I think that was not very beneficial for us because we now know a lot about precipitation and what causes it, but we know almost nothing about the problems around the world that are affecting our generation. And I think that the fact that we didn't have much time to study about climate changes, it's a bit disappointing because this project seems very interesting and exciting, but at the same time, we don't have the knowledge needed to participate actively. We wish that we could have more time to explore it because only talking about the precipitation in Portugal and not about what's happening around the world with the climate changes leaves us with less knowledge about the theme, which is very bad. Another problem that we faced was the fact that our geography teacher last year wasn't participating in this project, so she never tried to relate what we were learning in class with this project, and I think that was kind of a disadvantage for us because we were never really inside of the project on the climate change part. However, besides every problem that we had last year, we are still excited with this, and luckily this year our geography teacher is also part of it, so I think it will be better.
Okay, thank you, Bruna. I'm sorry, I just missed my presentation. Okay, so we learned that this is a project that has so many advantages in other subjects as geology. So we also talked with our geology teachers, biology and geology teachers in school, and we realized that it would be better to have a club, a GIS club in our school, and we will promote this software not only to the pupils that have geography lessons, but also to those who have IT lessons and biology, geology lessons, because we don't have a curriculum that has all these subjects together. So we are creating this club, and we hope that these kids will work together and see the benefits of the software in all subjects altogether. So for this, I asked my dearest student Margarida, that's beside me. So I'll just turn off my microphone.
Okay, thank you. I joined this project this school year, so like 2 weeks ago. So I tried in these 2 weeks to learn anything I could about this project and the implications it has in the field of geoscience and biology as a science student in high school. So what is the importance of geographic information systems in the field of geoscience? For example, in the delimitation of strategic areas of protection and recharge of the superficial aquifer, in the inventory of geological resources and risk sites, and in the inventory of invasive species and their classification according to their potential to reduce biodiversity. Our objectives for the future, as I don't know the past, is to delimitate strategic areas for the protection and recharge of the surface aquifer, including these areas in Seychelles Municipal Master Plan, to prevent them from being permeable, as they constitute areas of high importance for the sustainability of groundwater. I think we have to take good care of the nature that surrounds us if we want to have a future. And as teenagers, we have to have an active role in our lives and in our future. Thank you.
Okay, so now back to my presentation. I'm almost finishing. So I guess we are working towards a school where students will improve their knowledge in STEAM subjects. So we're trying our best to improve their environmental awareness and so they can take advantage of these new tools to manipulate and analyze data using QGIS software. So I guess in these two next years, we'll keep on working on our study case, and we'll inevitably have pupils more aware of the potential of this digital tool, and hopefully we'll be more aware of these particular subjects. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vania. It was really interesting, and thanks also to Margarida and Bruna for your intervention. And now we have another school that will be presenting their feedback on the training course and the transfer of knowledge. And I'm talking about the Marconi School in Rovereto, so in Italy. We have the teacher is Eugenio Berti. Is graduated. Hello, Eugenio. Eugenio is graduated in electronic engineering at the University of Ferrara and has been working as a high school teacher since 2002. Over the years, he has been teaching different subjects as telecommunication, electronics, automatic system. He has also enhanced the knowledge of some subjects, such as industrial IoT, robotics, and machine learning. And now he's also working, is in charge for internship of fourth-year students and also of the European project. So Eugenio Berti, please, you have the floor, and also your students. So looking forward to hearing.
Thank you again. Hello everyone. I'm here with my student Gabriel, Enzo, Ostap, and Alessio. And with their aids, I'll try to present you what we have done during the last school year. First thing first, 2 words about our school. Our school is located in the northern part of Italy, which is just inside the Alps territory. Is a beautiful territory surrounded by lakes, high mountains, forests, and so on. But it's also a fragile environment, actually. Our school is attended by more than 1,000 students, and we have 3 courses: automation, mechanics, and information technologies. But as you stated before, only less than 10% of the students are females. So here I'm surrounded by only male students, and I was very glad to hear about the Women in Copernicus program. Maybe we will get informed more about this program. I must confess, we last year when we started the project, we were 6 teachers and about 40 students, and this year we are again 6 teachers, and the students are 34 because 6 students didn't pass their year. Well, I must confess that in 2020, when I was first proposed to participate by my headmaster to this project, I was a kind of skeptical. I was wondering why an IT scientist, a data scientist, or an automation expert should deal with this kind of stuff. Well, maybe the answer came just during the training week we had in March 2021, when we used the training package, and we learn how to deal with map, to map, and how to access data from the satellites. Well, during that week, 2 images blew my mind. The first one, please, Alessio, open the Okay, open the video. Can you see? Can you see the video? This video. Can you? Okay, this video came from a link of the training package actually, and when I saw it. What I saw, it's an highly integrated system with electronic devices, with high technology put together in a single object, which is exactly what we are trying to teach to our students. So my subject is automatic system. My subject is electronic. I'm an electronic engineer, and what you can see here is actually an electronic, maybe very complicated electronic devices. These images fosters our curiosity, and in fact now we are in contact with the Italian National Institute of Astrophysics, and we are trying to build a nanosatellite. So we are just engaging in disseminate what we learn last year, or what we have start learning last year. And the second image, just a moment, is this one, and which is very very interesting to me. I didn't imagine that the actual situation about the Earth is this one. We have more than 20,000 objects flying, let's say flying around our Earth. This is both an opportunity, but it's also a challenge. When I see this this image, I personally think, and I was very intrigued by this image, and I did some research, and I heard for the first time, because I'm not in the field of astrophysics, I heard for the first time about the Keller's syndrome. And for me, it's to me is very how can I say, it's particularly interesting to get aware our students that the big possibility they have nowadays, but also to get them aware that they can't, that the pollution of the space could be a real problem. Please go on. Okay. So what's next? So we are engaging in using the data from satellites to study the processionary, and now we have another problem here in our territory, which is the European spruce bark beetle, and both processionary and these new bug are spreading, are devastating our forest. We start with the student our path last year for about 30 hours. And now I give the floor to them, and they just in few words tell what they learn about GIS system and about QGIS. Please, Ostap.
Yes. Okay, hello everyone, my name is Ostap and now I want to introduce you what we did last year from GIS school and here I start. Often, as our teacher said before, when we imagine our planet from space, we think about a simple blue and a green sphere, but actually Earth is way more sophisticated. What we mean is that there is a huge difference between just looking at Earth and analyzing it. Like, thanks to our modern space technologies, we can now see Earth like we could never have seen before. For example, just around the globe, there are about 20,000 man-made objects in space, and many of them are just debris. In our last school year, we understood how to access satellites data and how to interpret them to study Earth changes. For example, to access the satellites images, we just have to use the EO browser Earth. After signing in, you can choose your area of interest and the time. They will output an image on the screen. On the left, you can choose your preferred bandwidth, such as true color, fast color, NDVA, and many more. In just a few clicks, you probably have what you've been searching for free. I pass my word to Gabriel.
Hello, I'm Gabriel, and now I'm going to talk to you about the spectral signature and the principle of image analysis in a very short way, so I don't bore you. Our spectral signature is the variation of the reflected sunlight called reflectance of a natural or man-made object. That means that every object has its own spectral signature, and if we know the object composition, we can monitor its health status or its degradation. But if we don't know the object composition, we can use its spectral signature for its identification. Another useful use of the spectral signature is to sound out the ground to create satellites images, and we can use these images to classify land into different classes, such as farmlands, glaciers, urban areas, forests, and lakes. And these categories are called then cover categories. We can also classify these classes into subclasses for human use. Some of them are for residential use or for recreational purposes, and these are called land use categories. Thanks to the different reflectance of every object, we can see with our very own eyes the land cover and the use of these categories on the satellite images. We can also see how these maps and environment change in time. In fact, since every object and the land have a different wavelength and a different reflectance, we can easily separate what is bare ground from unhealthy vegetation. We can also distinguish clean water from polluted water or rain clouds from normal clouds. But the question is how we can measure the spectral signature into satellites. The answer is pretty simple. Since the satellites can record the surface reflectance in different spectral bands, then they can also produce multi-band grayscale images. So if we look at a single image pixel and plot its value stored in all the multi-band images spectral bands, we can approximate its continuous spectral signature with a polyline. And now I would like to say to you my personal experience with the GIS4Schools. And when I firstly was introduced to the project by our teacher, Mr. Berti, I wasn't very interested in the beginning because I thought it would be another old theory course with no useful application. But then Mr. Berti asked us what we wanted to do with this project, and long story short, we decided to use the QGIS to help our city, Rovereto, to map in the local forest the processionaries nest. These little worm-like insects are a serious danger to our ecosystem and a risk for humans, since the little hairs on the processionaries body are extremely stinging and can cause itchy and hurtful erythemas, or in the worst cases, if we eat or inhale these hairs, they can cause a serious mouth inflammation, vomit, breathing difficulties, and chest pains. These insects are also very dangerous for the environment where they live, See, because in the last years we got invaded by the processionaries, thanks of the global warming. And since these animals eat leaves of the tree where they born, the health of the population of the Scots pine and the black pine drastically decreased. And our goal is to help Rovereto to keep track of the processionaries population and to keep it to a normal level. Thank you for the attention. Now I'm gonna pass the word to my friend Enzo.
Okay, I wanted to talk about the spectral indices for environmental monitoring. A spectral index is a math expression applied to a multispectral image to highlight the specific properties of different land cover, their state of alteration, amount, or earth. Spectral indices combine the reflectance information from multiple spectral bands into one numeric value. Thus, they turn satellite images from a qualitative visual inspection tool into a quantitative numerical analysis tool. The most popular spectral indices are those to retrieve the status of vegetation and crops. However, there are also indices designed to estimate soil properties, delineate bird areas, monitor build-up virtues, map water bodies, and many others. Every land feature reflects the sunlight differently, depending on the physical state, chemical composition, moisture content, state of alteration, or earth. Besides, any variation of these parameters produces a corresponding modification in the spectral signature. And I want to pass the word to Alessio.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. My name is Alessio, and I'm gonna silence my phone right now because it went off at the wrong time. And I'm gonna talk about the chapter 3 of QGIS, and specifically about Earth observation, which is EO for short, and is the gathering of information via remote sensing stuff and via remote sensing tech. And for example, via satellite photography. Satellites are today all over the planet, and they are thousands, maybe, all over the planet orbiting around. And they mainly differ on the orbit time, imaging cameras, and spatial resolution. And in this slide right here, I'm going to talk about orbit time, in which they subdivide into 4 categories and 3 main categories. And the first category is geostationary orbit, and GEO for short. And they orbit at a height of over 35,800 kilometers, and they are mostly used for weather forecasting. Next, we have the MEOs for short, and it's an acronym for medium Earth orbits, and they orbit at a height between 35,800 kilometers and 1,000. And an example of a famous satellite that is an MEO, it's the American GPS system. And the low Earth orbits, the LEO, orbits around between 200 and 1,000 kilometers. And sun-synchronous orbits are a special kind of LEOs, low Earth orbits, and are always fixed in the same position relative to the sun. You can go on, thank you. And now I'm going to talk about spatial resolution, which is the spatial resolution of a satellite imagery device that specifies the pixel size of satellite images and at the Earth's surface. Depending on the image pixel size, remote sensing cameras are divided into very high, medium, low, and very low. Very high resolution cameras are typically used for small spaces. For example, for mapping buildings damaged by earthquakes. And on the other hand, GEOs, which are satellites that go at a higher height, use low resolution cameras with IXVOT, and they do scan bigger places. Medium resolutions are the most used in satellites because they have a good compromise between them, between quality and extension. on. And I'm going to close this presentation with a quote from Yuri Gagarin, the first man to go into space, talking about the Earth while he was, in fact, on space. He said, "I see Earth and it is so beautiful." And we close it this way. Thank you for the attention.
Thank you very much to the students and Professor Berti for this interesting presentation, and thank you again for students from the Portuguese school and the Italian school and telling us what was their experience. We are really running late. I saw that in the chat there have been a bit of exchange. So if you have additional questions for our speakers, or if you have any curiosity about the GIS4Schools project, you can easily contact us. We will include, of course, online the presentations, today's presentation, and the recording of this webinar. So you can always have some reference material if you, again, have questions of curiosity. I would like at this point, I don't know if there are questions, last minute questions for our speakers. I don't see any. No? Okay, so I think I'll give the floor again to Annalisa for the conclusive remarks. And thank you from my side. Thank you.
Thank you, Alessandra. And well, I prepared something, but actually I will leave it for next time because we're really running out of time. The only thing I would like to say is that indeed, I mean, it's so powerful to hear students here saying that, I mean, starting from this little training, of course, that is tackling only one of the multiple angles that Earth observation and GIS can bring. They have been triggered to study more, to understand better, and to, I mean, this was indeed, as I was mentioning in the chat, like one of the project's objectives, to nurture your curiosity. So to start from a little piece of information and try to enlarge it with you. So it's a co-creation project. We wanted very much to have you on board and to have you guys doing things because you are interested and you do understand the power of satellite information, of space infrastructure for Earth. So this is what we do on a daily basis. And again, I couldn't be more proud and happy to hear that from the little floods in Portugal City, the students want to learn more about floods on Earth and how we can tackle this and deforestation issues. I mean, I'm Italian as well. I do know what is the impact of let's say extreme weather condition on our mountains, on our forests, and it's incredibly important that young generation starts to understand what they on first hand can do to tackle this and to have like cities, regions, countries more sustainable and more interested in the impact that we as humans have on the environment, because indeed, as Yuri Gagarin mentioned, Earth is beautiful and we should protect it. So this is like what I wanted to say. I invite everybody to also join us on next week with a slightly different setup. We will listen from other schools and we will have additional input from the participants of the GIS and other high-level speakers. I thank everybody for today's inputs, which have been really interesting and for sure gave us some food for thoughts for the future. And I hope we can keep in touch with everybody to really like advocate for the better and more gender balance in the space sector and in the STEAM sector at large, and for ways to better cooperate to stimulate the enrollment of young students in STEM subjects. Thank you very much and see you next time.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye-bye.